Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. So today we're going to do a review of the new adventure pack that we just got in update 49, which is called Peril of the Planar Eyes. As usual with these videos, these reviews, I will give you a basic overview of the pack. We'll go through each quest one by one and talk about it a little bit, and then I'll give you my overall thoughts at the end. So let's get started with the basics. So this pack consists of 4 quests. These quests are located in Lord's March Plaza. There is no new adventure area, a new public area. You just direct port to the quests from the NPCs in Lord's March Plaza. The quests are level 12 heroic and level 32 legendary, and the pack costs 650 DDO points. Let's give you an overview now of the story. So the story involves Moorgrave University in Sharn. Moorgrave University is looking for 13 artifacts, and they need your help to retrieve 4 of them. There is a cult called the Hidden Hand who is also searching for these 4 artifacts. Each of these artifacts, which are known as eyes, channels the power of a different plane of existence and can be powerful and dangerous in the wrong hands. So, as the way this pack goes, there's an eye in each of the individual quests. Each eye channels the power of a certain plane of existence. So because each eye consists of a different power, you will see each quest have its own theme and have a different location. All of these quests are located in different areas of the game. The scholars from Moorgrave University want you to find these artifacts so that they can be kept in Sharn, studied, and placed in a museum, whereas the Hidden Hand cult wants to gather them and use them for their own nefarious reasons. Let's talk about the first quest, which is called An Element of Chaos. So this quest, there's really not much to say. This is the shortest and simplest of all of the 4 quests. In this quest, you need to retrieve the Eye of Kithiri from a drow who currently possesses it. When you walk into the quest, there's a very kind of easy standard memory puzzle that we've seen before in a lot of places in the game. There's some spike traps, but other than that, there's really not much to say for this quest. You pull some levers, this opens you to go into an underground cavern area, you fight a lot of slods, and you have an infight. It's really basic, bare bones. Like I said, there's really nothing to say. It's just kind of a very basic quest. So let's move on to a quest where there's much more to say, which is the second quest, which is called I Know Who Done It. So as the title of this quest implies, you are going to be looking for the person that committed a crime. So this quest takes place in Sharn, and you are looking for the Eye of Serania. In this quest, this eye was recently lent out to a construction company in Sharn, and you need to get it back because these construction workers did not return it as promised. And they needed to borrow the eye so that they could better move equipment to make constructing stuff easier. In any case, right when you walk into the quest, you'll see a variety of different NPCs at the beginning, and there are 4 different suspects, and your job is to figure out which of these suspects stole the eye. Each of the suspects has their own kind of home, I would call a home location. So there's one suspect who always goes to the sewer, one suspect who always goes to the church, one who always goes to the construction company, etc. I played through this quest many times, and the gist of what you do is you go through the quest, and there will be different pieces of evidence scattered throughout the quest, and you need to find a certain number of pieces to accuse a certain NPC. So when you find enough evidence for an NPC to accuse that person, then you go to that person, you accuse them. If they're the right one, then the quest will be over because they'll lead you to the eye. After you defeat them, you'll go into a room where the eye will exist. It is possible to accuse the wrong person. So if that happens, you can still kill the person and get a chest, but you need to continue the quest until you find the right person. So, and as far as I can tell, this is randomized every time. I played through the quest solo 4 times at this point, and I've gotten 3 of the 4 suspects. The community is still definitely figuring out exactly how this quest works. But in any case, I think this is the best designed quest in the whole pack. It's quite creative. I like that it actually has replayability, and it's not so combat focused, but it actually has a mechanic that's a little bit more interesting than just talking to NPCs. So I give the devs here credit for being creative and putting together a nice quest that has definitely a lot of replay value in subsequent runs. Quest number 3 is called Seizing the Dawn. This quest is located in the Mektarm Desert, actually technically in the Mektarm Mountains. And in this quest, a high-ranking cleric of the Undying Court has asked you to retrieve the Eye of Irian, and you need to find a missing cleric there as well if you can. So this quest is a little bit longer than some of the previous ones. The first part of the quest, you need to collect some crests to unlock a puzzle, and that puzzle will allow you to advance the quest. So the first thing, you find the crests, you need to unlock the puzzle and then solve the puzzle. There is an optional area, which is quite a large area. It has a dragon fight in it. And if you want to go through this optional area, you can get some additional XP and an additional chest. Now, once you've collected the crest and unlocked the puzzle, you will see that the puzzle is a Dryad and Demigod style puzzle. So this is a new puzzle type that we saw introduced in the raid. Basically what you need to do is there's 4 spheres that are floating in the air, and you need to line them up in a specific row. And there are 4 buttons on the floor, and each button has a different effect on the spheres. So for example, the first button might move 2 of the spheres up and not move like any other spheres at all. The second button might move the first sphere up, have no effect on the second sphere, and then move the last 2 spheres down a slot. So you need to figure out the right combination of buttons to hit to line them all up in a specific row. And these puzzles are actually quite challenging, and I wasn't a big fan of this puzzle really in Dryad and the Demigod, just because I felt like in all practicality there's not really any time when you're actually pugging a raid like this to actually solve this type of puzzle as intended, to actually think through it. You basically, in a raid situation, you need to either memorize the solution or you need to use a solver, neither of which is actually solving the puzzle as intended. But I like it a lot better in a quest situation like this, where you can solo it or maybe be in a static group where you can actually relax a little bit, take your time, and actually think through the puzzle. And just be ready for these puzzles because they're actually pretty complicated. You need to figure out a certain combination of the buttons to actually line them up. A good tip is to get them all down on the very bottom row first and then try to figure out how to raise them up. I found like that is a pretty good solution. I'm still not that great at these puzzles, but I'm definitely getting better. And I'm glad that you can actually go into this quest now and use this as a practice run if you want to get better at the puzzles for the Dryad and the Demigod raid. I'm glad this exists in this quest so you can actually practice and get better at this type of puzzle, because as I said before, it is quite challenging. Okay, after you get past the puzzle, you go into a temple where you find the orb and you have a basic infight. There's not really much else to say about the quest. I will say I really like the atmosphere of this quest. You have a nice background. It's desert themed, obviously. There's a really cool optional I like with all the kobolds and the dragon. Pretty nice fight there. So I quite enjoy this quest. Let's move on now to the 4th quest, which is called Beautiful Nightmare. So in this quest, you must retrieve the Eye of Dalcor from a monastery in a jungle. This quest is Quarry themed, so you're gonna find a lot of dream monsters like you might see in, say, like the Inspired Quarter. Your job as an adventurer is you need to go into the monastery and find the eye. So for this, you must be initiated into the monastery to approach it. And there's a mechanic in this quest which is very similar to quests like Inferno of the Damned or a quest like Through a Mirror Darkly. There is a dark side and a light side. Technically in this quest, it's a dream side and a real kind of an awake side. And you need to click on various altars to put yourself to sleep or wake yourself up, depending on which side you need to go into. And you do need to go from side to side, just like an Inferno or Mirror Darkly, to get through the quest. Now, I will say, unlike those 2 quests, though, this is much simpler. It's not nearly as complicated as those 2 that I mentioned. And I didn't even feel like you need to... It's quite linear. Like, you don't actually need to think too much about, oh, how do I get into this room by clicking on this altar? Do I need to be in the dream state here or the awake state here? It's really... The quest flows quite naturally, and my first run through that, I didn't have any problems finding my way through the quest. You don't need a guide. It's not that complicated to get through this quest. There's some very mild platforming in this quest, and you might have a little bit more if you fall down a pit. There's a section of the quest where there's a very large pit. To help with this, there is some altars you can click on. Not the ones that put you to sleep, but different altars. They're actually fountains, and they will give you a jump buff and feather falling if you aren't able to cast those on yourself. If you fall down to one of these pits, you're going to have to kind of jump your way up. So there can be a little bit of platforming, but not too much. You also have to hop on top of chandeliers to get through the quest in certain parts. So after you get more towards the end of the quest, you have an option of completing it by going through a trial of might or a trial of the mind. If you go through the trial of might, you have a mini boss fight. If you go through trial of the mind, you have a tile puzzle. Personally, if you're running this on a challenging difficulty for you, I would just go for the tile puzzle. It's a lot easier to go through that way than to do the fight. After that, after you go through the trial, you have a basic infight consisting of the two giants. They're actually not giants, they're reskin giants, but a pretty basic infight. This quest it's all right. I don't feel like like I have said before about this mechanic with the flipping between a light side and a dark side that we've seen this mechanic several times in the game through quests I've mentioned, and we've seen it brought back here. I've never felt like this mechanic adds anything to the quest. I think it's either in the case of Inferno and Through a Mirror Darkly, I think it just is more annoying than challenging. And in this circumstance, I don't really find it annoying in this quest, Beautiful Nightmare, just because the quest is quite simple, so it's not really any more complicated to me to flip through the dark side, the light side and the dark side, than it is to open doors in a normal quest. It's not like you're having to think a lot as to what side you should be in. It's pretty linear. So let's now talk about the pack overall. So a couple things I need to mention is the loot and the XP. So from a practical standpoint, the loot and the XP is quite good. These quests, I have to point out, are much easier than quests around their level, at least in the epic version. Now, I've run this pack, I think 3 or 4 times through now. At this point, I've only run the epic version. I'm not running the heroic version, so I can't really tell you how much easier or harder it is compared to other quests at level 12. But I can tell you for sure, when it comes to in-game content and other level 32 quests, this quest pack is significantly easier. So if you normally run R1, you can definitely bump it up a few skulls and run like R3. Definitely soloing like I would say soloing like R3. This pack is probably equivalent to like soloing R1 Feywild or R1 Sharn. It's definitely quite a bit easier. So because of that, I think these quests can be really good for kind of your daily Reaper XP grind if you're into that at in game. I know a lot of people like to run quests like Grim and Barrett and Memories of Illusionary Larcener, quests like that, because they're really good Reaper XP for the challenge. And I think these quests are going to fall under that same rubric in that it's a pretty nice chunk of Reaper XP, considering they're much easier than, say, running like Feywild or Sharn for sure. On the downside, if you're like a R10 person, you're probably going to be disappointed with the challenge. You're probably going to go through, if you normally run like Sharn stuff at R10, you're going to run these on R10 and stomp them, most likely, because they're just not nearly as challenging as other quests around the level. Not criticizing him for that at all. I'm just pointing it out. It can be a good or a bad thing depending on what you like and what you think. As far as the loot, there's some good loot here. It seems to be on the same level as the typical in-game loot that we've been getting the past year or two. So there's some good pieces here. There's also some they went and did kind of a unique crafting system here with scepters. So there's a lot of really attractive stuff if you're a caster. There's a lot of caster scepters here, and there's even an ability to combine some of these scepters and create a quarterstaff. So there's a lot of scepters for pretty much any casting type you can think of here. Now, as far as the quests themselves, I really like the quests. I think they're fun. I think the one in the Tarim Desert looks great. Has a good combination of the puzzle, and you got the dragon optional, so that's pretty cool. I think that the I Know Who Done It quest is quite creative. It's really well done quest. There's a lot of replayability there, so I really appreciate what they did there. However, my main complaint with this quest series is that it's pretty obvious that the SSG did the minimum here. They really cut corners. That there's no adventure area, there's no public area, there's only 4 quests. Also, I'm not a big fan of the instant teleport to quests. It feels weird that you just instantly teleport to all these quests, and I think that's a mechanic that SSG has been overusing because it really breaks immersion. I don't really understand when we have one of these quests that's located in Sharn, one of the quests that are located in Tarim. Why don't we have to go there to go to these quests? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's okay if we have to. I'm sure it's there for convenience, but I think I would have been fine with them putting these quests in their various areas if they would have just incorporated that extra runtime into the experience points or the loot drop rates. So, for example, people don't complain about having to run through a quest like Mirror Darkly because the XP is amazing. So if they make it worth it to kind of run around the whole world, I'm okay with that. But they didn't, probably for convenience, and I see why. It's just it really breaks the immersion, and there's not really much immersion here. It just feels weird that you instantly teleport to every quest. It's too bad that they did the minimum here. There's no wilderness area, no public area. Granted, in this case, I understand they're not doing a wilderness area just because it wouldn't make sense, because obviously you can't put all these quests in a wilderness area because they take place in different locations. So I give them a little bit of leeway for that. Should you buy the pack? If you want some stuff to run for Reaper XP in game, or if you want some of the loot, then I'd say yeah. Otherwise, it's definitely not essential, but I thought the quests were pretty fun. Okay, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think about this adventure pack below. Would be interested in what you are thinking. That's all for this video. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one. Take care.